What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we are here for our Week 4 waiver wire video. I will admit, I do think the waiver wire this week is fairly weak. There's a lot of names, but I don't think there's a lot of solidified, guaranteed options that are going to be contributors for your fantasy football leagues. And the few names that we do have that are going to be that are likely rostered because they're above that 50% rostership percentage that we try and look at. But I do have a list of names today that I still think are worth picking up if you're looking for some extra pieces to throw onto the back end of your bench. So without wasting any more time, let's hop right into today's video and let's talk about these waiver wire pickups. All right, so like I said, the few names that are worth picking up are probably already rostered. A lot of these players here as the priority pickups are around that 50% threshold or above. And so I'm going to give you some names. If they're available, go pick them up. These are much better options than the players I'll talk about in the other list. But Jordan Addison is one of the guys going to be off the suspension. Quentin Johnston, Daniel Jones, Chris Godwin, who is likely coming back from the injury here sooner rather than later. Harold Fannin, who's been a previous waiver wire pickup. Same with Bashal Tutin. Same with Trey Benson. Trey Benson is going to be the biggest add this week because of the injury to James Conner. He is going to be league winning type of potential, a league winning add, but he's rostered in over 58% of leagues. So unfortunately for most people, he's probably already on a roster. Like you see, that 58% is probably 6 out of 10 leagues. He's already on the roster. So just check your waiver wires. If he is a unload the clip, full bag of fab. You're giving everything you can, burning the number one priority. I think Benson is going to be the guy that you have to go out and get. But like I said, he's just not going to be available in a majority of leagues. So that's why we're talking about him here rather than solidifying him as one of the top 10 guys in the other one that are below 50%. Darnell Mooney is another player, same with Alec Imaner, who we've talked about plenty of times this year, and same with Romeo Dobbs. But those are the priority pickups going into week 4. Like I said with Trey Benson, he's being talked about here. If you have him on your waiver wire, dump everything, dump the fab. I'm good going 90 to 100% of my fab just to make sure that I can get him on my roster because he's been one of the more efficient running backs in fantasy in his limited touches and should see the majority of the workload in this backfield now moving forward with James Conner likely done for the year. All right, so that does take us to our first player below 50%, and that is going to be Ollie Gordon of the Miami Dolphins. Now, he is currently coming off of a week here where he had 9 touches for 38 total yards and a touchdown, and that's not super spectacular, but he is available in almost 70% of leagues, currently rostered in 33% of leagues. This is a running back who has been top 5 in points per touch amongst the rookie running back class so far this year, and it does look like he's carving out a decent role in this offense alongside Devon Achane, maybe similar to that Raheem Mostert role that we saw from a few years ago. But I do think this is a player who should be picked up and put on the back end of your bench because he can be a league winning type of asset like Trey Benson if anything were to ever happen for Devon Achane, and if he were ever to miss an extended period of time, I think Ollie Gordon would be the first man up. Let's go to my next guy. My next guy is going to be Blake Corum for the Los Angeles Rams. 8 touches for him, 53 total yards in a loss against the Philadelphia Eagles, currently rostered in about 27% of fantasy football leagues, and very similar to Ollie Gordon, this is a player who is a pickup and hold. I think that's what the majority of the waiver wire is this week of the guys that are currently under 50% rostership. So it's kind of one of those weeks where you're picking up players that we're stashing on the back end of the bench. But Kyren and Blake Corum continue to split touches, split carries in the red zone. And it does seem like Corum has been a little bit more efficient with some of the touches that he's been seeing because he's seen the same amount of 10+ yard runs on nearly a fourth of the carries that Kyren Williams has seen so far this year. I also think this is a player who has league winning potential if anything were to ever happen to Kyren Williams. So one of the high-end handcuffs that could potentially be on your waiver wire. And this is also a player who has a league high 100% red zone rushing success rate so far this year per next gen stats. So make sure you go pick him up if he's available on your waiver wire. Let's go to my third guy. My third guy is going to be Luther Burden of the Chicago Bears. 3 catches, 3 targets, 108 yards and a touchdown, currently rostered in only 25% of leagues. Had a win this week against the Dallas Cowboys, and this is a player who has seen his targets go up every single week of the season so far. Obviously, it's not anything spectacular yet. It was 1 target week 1, 2 in week 2, 3 in week 3, but I like to see the steady progression from a rookie wide receiver in this offense who I thought was very talented coming into the NFL draft. I think this is a player who could end up becoming more and more involved as the season goes on, and I think he is a legit weapon if anything were to ever happen to DJ Moore or Rome Odunze, God forbid, because I have a lot of Rome Odunze shares, but I think this is a player who is going to only improve as the season goes on, and this offense seems to be getting just a little bit better each week. Also, just recognize that they play played the Dallas Cowboys, who seem to have a pretty mediocre defense. So let's go to the next guy. The next guy is going to be Tory Horton, rookie wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. 3 catches on 4 targets for 32 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of those was a punt return touchdown. Only rostered in 8% of leagues right now. This is a player that I still think we need to wait on. He isn't necessarily a player that I'm going to be comfortable plugging into my lineups right away, but with Cooper Kupp's injury history and the lack of involvement that Cooper Kupp has had as a big target monster in this offense, I do think there's certainly room for Tory Horton's role to grow, and I think he's a little bit of a long-term play if you're picking him up off the waiver wire. And he's definitely shown flashes of playmaking in this offense, so somebody I would be looking at if you have the bench space. I just don't think he's going to be an immediate plug-and-play option. So let's go to my 5th pickup. It's going to be Sterling Shepard of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had a win this week against the New York Jets. He had 4 receptions on 5 targets for 80 yards, and he's only rostered in about 2% of leagues right now. So I know it's rumored that Chris Godwin is on his way back into the lineup. We kind of already talked about that with the priority pickups, but Shepard should see an increased role in this offense because Mike Evans injured his hamstring this week, and it is rumored as of right now, we're still waiting on some more information, but it is rumored right now that it could be a injury that could keep him out of the lineup here for a couple weeks. So Sterling Shepard should see an increased role here, and he could be a very viable, maybe not a high end, but a viable flex option for a couple of weeks if Evans misses time in a very good Buccaneers offense. So let's go to our next guy. That is going to be a quarterback. It's going to be Geno Smith of the Las Vegas Raiders. Coming off of a loss there against the Washington Commanders, threw for 289 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Now, I don't think this is the best quarterback ever to roster. You're obviously not going to be super excited about keeping Geno Smith year round, and certainly in 1 QB leagues, you're not super excited about Geno Smith in general. But he does have a good week 4 matchup against the Bears, who are the 3rd easiest matchup for quarterbacks from a points above expectation standpoint. So I do think he's worth streaming if you're still trying to figure out the quarterback position, navigate some of these quarterback injuries. Maybe you picked up Jake Browning and you don't want to have him out there again next week. I think it could be better for Jake Browning next week, but this is certainly one of the better streaming options at the quarterback position next week. So if he's available and you need QB, Geno Smith is a fine plug and play option as a streaming quarterback in week 4. Let's go to our next guy, and again, kind of another handcuff option. Rico Dowdle to me for the Carolina Panthers. 11 touches, 1 touchdown, 38 total yards in this game against the Atlanta Falcons. 17% rostership is where he's currently sitting at. And I've talked about him a couple of times on stash episodes and some waiver episodes and things like that over the course of the year. But Carolina has a pretty easy upcoming schedule for running back production based on points allowed above expectation, like I said. And Dowdle should continue to be the handcuff option for Chuba Hubbard and has the skill set to fill that bell cow-ish type of role that Chuba has been filling so far this season. So if anything ever happens to him, Rico Dowdle is definitely worth picking up. So if you need somebody to hold on the back end of your roster, Dowdle is one of those guys. So like I said, that's kind of what this waiver wire is this week, so bear with me. The next guy is going to be at the tight end position. It's Hunter Henry. He's coming off of a big week, currently rostered in only 40% of leagues. 8 receptions on 11 targets for 90 total yards and 2 touchdowns in this loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, 2 touchdowns isn't going to happen every single week, but he is a player who is leading this Patriots team in targets through the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. So I think he can certainly be a plug and play option for you in week 4 in a matchup against the Carolina Panthers. And if you're looking for tight end production off of the waiver wire, Hunter Henry would be one of my first targets that I look at. So number 9 for me is going to be Jeremy McNichols from the Washington Commanders. We talked about him on the stash episode as well. He's currently rostered in about 11% of leagues. They had that win against the Raiders. He had 4 touches for 78 total yards and a touchdown. Obviously, one of those was that big long play that he had that went for 60 yards in this game. It's very clear to me that this running back room is trying to figure out who is going to be the guy to step up, and it is very messy overall in general. Obviously, Jeremy McNichols is involved. You have guys like Chris Rodriguez, and you have guys like Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt that are all trying to compete for touches. I think McNichols is the only guy in this room so far that does profile as the third down and as the pass catching back in this offense, so I think he should see a steady enough role while JCM and Chris Rodriguez are going to be competing for that early down work. So if you're in a PPR league and you just need any type of signs of life at the running back position, Jeremy McNichols might be worth picking up. And I'm going to bring up his teammate as well, Chris Rodriguez. He had 11 touches for 39 total yards in this game, only rostered in about 10% of leagues as well. And like I mentioned, it's a messy backfield. McNichols looks to be the third down in the pass catching back, but Rodriguez is going to be in this competition here with JCM for early down touches. So I think he's worth picking up and rostering just to see what happens, but I'm not expecting anything out of this backfield until somebody really takes over a lead back role. Obviously, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill Krosky-Merritt is going to be the guy that I think has the best shot at that. But all of these guys are involved at the moment because nobody has come in and taken over the touches, and nobody's really proven that they can be the lead guy just yet here in Washington. So there you have it. This is this week's waiver wire pickups that I will be looking at and targeting in my leagues. Obviously, those priority guys, the Trey Bensons of the world, the Jordan Addisons, if for some reason you're in a shallow league and he's available, all of those players are going to be the guys that you really want. The list of 10 names that I gave you afterwards, those are guys that I think you can pick up as potential handcuff options that could be league winners if anything happens. There's just no immediate real production, I think, on the waiver wire at this point in time. But sometimes that happens with weeks in the fantasy football season. You know, we had the big injury to one of the guys. Obviously, that foot dropped, and now Trey Benson's a guy that's viable for some people, but obviously that's not a guy that is available in under 50% of leagues. So that's just kind of where we're at. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, do me the favor, hit that like button. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description, helping you guys with your fantasy football teams 24/7, 365. But with all of those things out of the way, I have nothing else for you guys today, so I will see you on our next episode. But until then, peace out.